Have you ever used the excuse of age to explain why your Portuguese is not that good yet? Perhaps you said you were too old, or that you're not a child anymore, and that children learn languages just like that? Quem nunca? Well, children do have their advantages in what concerns language learning, but it's probably not for the reasons you think. Because on average, it takes them about 1 year to say their first word, 2 years to say their first modest sentence, and then 3 years to be understood by an adult that is not related to the family. Now, it took me 3 years to speak my own language, but it doesn't have to take you, an adult, that much time to learn Portuguese. As adults, there's a lot we can learn from how children acquire language. To explain that, I will demonstrate some games that I used to play when I was growing up, and together we'll squeeze out all the Portuguese we can from those games. Olá, sou a Catarina. Hoje de tranças. Sim, a minha filha fez-me trancinhas. Estou a fazer um vídeo de trancinhas. Fico bem de trancinhas? At the Language Unschool, I help you learn European Portuguese out of the box. One way that could look like is combining how children learn a language and pair it with the brain power of adults. Now, children's play is filled with basic, useful day-to-day vocabulary, except perhaps for trancinhas, like numbers, imperative, and if you combine lots and lots of repetition to it, a nice tune, which usually kids' games will have, and context, that is key, then your learning journey is bound to just take off. Parados? Bora brincar. So what is that, you may ask? It's an elastic band. Elástico. And what I'm going to do is saltar o elástico. Then I'll come back to squeeze all the Portuguese we can out of this game. My favorite game when I was little. Mete, mete, tira, tira, mete, vai ao meio, sai para fora. Mete, mete, tira, tira, mete, vai ao meio, sai para fora. E mete, e tira, mete, vai ao meio, sai para fora. Okay, I'm back. I was playing a bit more. In terms of the Portuguese you can get, I would like to stress two things. One is the imperative, which is something obviously you use a lot on a day-to-day basis. So probably the tricky bit about the imperative in Portuguese is that we're going to have a formal version and an informal version. So if you look at the verb desculpar, which maybe you never thought of it as a verb, but you do say one of the first things you learn in Portuguese is desculpe. And you learn how you shouldn't say desculpa, which is informal. So you have desculpe, desculpa. Now, desculpe is formal. And if you look at the infinitive, desculpar, you know that if it ends with AR, you want to be formal. You remove the A and the R and you substitute that for an E. Okay? If it's informal, you just stick the A there, keep the A, and that's enough. And you have that with tira, tira. So I say mete, mete, tira, tira. So tirar. So if I'm being informal, which obviously kids' games are going to be informal, you just remove the R and you have the imperative for regular verbs, okay? Irregulars are always a different story. So tira, tira, take, take. If you look at meter, so it ends with ER, and I say mete, mete. So I just remove the R, and there you go, the imperative, again informal. So mete, mete, tira, tira. You have the tune, right? Makes it stick. I hope it doesn't bother you, but so mete, mete, tira, tira, and then mete again. Vai ao meio. So the third thing you have here is go to the middle. Vai ao meio, and then you know that meio means middle. E sai para fora. Sai, leave, get out. You may have the word saída. People always talk about signs. I want to be able to at least read signs. So saída comes from the verb sair. So exit, leave. Sai is imperative. Not regular at all, but at least you've been exposed here once. Sai. And then para fora. Fora means outside. And I'm saying para, even though correct spelling is para. But this is a word we tend to shorten a lot, because there's no other word that it would be confused with. So we're like entitled to. Okay, now I'm going to show you another game called Macaquinho do Chinês. And it will be a great opportunity for you to see that I have not only duas tranças à frente, à frente, mas também uma atrás. Atrás. Very useful information. 1, 2, 3, macaquinho do chinês. Mexeste! Vai para trás! So what do you get out of this 1, 2, 3, macaquinho do chinês? So you have 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Very basic, but super important to know, right? So 1, 2, 3, macaquinho do chinês. Macaquinho. Again, I actually started with a trancinha, the diminutive, and you have here macaquinho. So macaco is monkey, macaquinho, small monkey. And then do chinês. Chinês means Chinese, as in the Chinese man, and it's one pattern of how we say nationality. So you have Português, or the language, Português, Chinês, English, Francês. Can't think of others, but I'm sure there are. Pakistanis, there you go. And what else do you have? You learn how to construct the possessive. So to show possession. So you have do Chinês, of the Chinese. The other thing you got from it was that someone moved, right? I said mexeste-te, you moved yourself. And then I said vai para trás. Vai para trás. Again, the imperative, vai, go. Para trás. Trás means again behind. Remember I said tenho uma trança atrás. And para is actually a very short, informal version of para. Now, if you're enjoying this so far, I strongly recommend you check my Get to Grips with European Portuguese free webinar so that you have a better taste of what it's like to learn Portuguese in an out-of-the-box, unschooling way. All the details are in the description. Okay, jogar às escondidas, to play hide and seek, is probably one of those classics. Every kid in every country must do it. And what a great way to learn to count to 10. And if you're lucky, depending on the age of the child, they will be able to count to 20. Now, super important to know how to count from 11 till 19, because in at least my experience, most languages, the numbers there are going to be very irregular. So, bora brincar, jogar às escondidas. Eu conto, vocês escondem-se. I count, you hide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Aqui vou eu. I don't know if you noticed, but the slight tune that you add to it, to the counting, it's not just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. There's a tune to it and almost like an expectation. Oh, she's almost coming, she's almost done, I have to hide in a good spot. It really helps. Bora jogar à memória?
Sim.
Bora. Então primeiro temos que baralhar as cartas. Então temos um joker, 2 jokers.
Só falta aquele que tem...
E este, que não sei bem o que é. Tem um joker, mas um joker esquisito. Desligas ali o fogão.
Sim, mas mães, ainda esquecemos aquela da lista, dizer as coisas.
Também está aqui?
Sim.
Uma carta extra. Deixa eu ver. Ah, pois está. Então vamos baralhar outra vez. Em geral, só se pode baralhar 3 vezes, porque senão dá azar, sabias?
O que é azar?
Azar é quando não tens sorte. Depois podes perder no jogo.
Ai,
então, em geral, ganhas à mãe,
não é? Claro que eu ganho.
Queres... Põe as cartas deste lado e eu ponho deste lado.
Sim.
Né? Então vá, quem começa?
Eu.
Começas tu, então vá. E agora vou eu. Olha! Apareceu-me um 6. Onde é que estava o de 6? Ai, apareceu-me um 5, não pode ser. Vá, agora és tu. Espertalhona. Ganhas sempre à mãe. Vais outra vez, vá. Oh, estás a ganhar bem quantos já tens uns quantos pares, eu não tenho nenhum. Um 10, mas já abrimos um 10. Olha, sacana. Olha, apanhei outra dama. Mas eu não me lembro onde é que estava a outra.
Eu não sei.
Ahá, consegui. Consegui o meu primeiro par.
Boa.
Tcharam. Não, sou eu então. Estás a ver com a mão?
Esqueci.
Um 10. Também já tínhamos visto um 10. Lembras-te onde é que está o 10? Não? Mentirosa. Lembras tudo. Muito bom. Já tínhamos visto 8. Um 10. Olha o 10. Isso é só para. 10 e um 10.
Boa, mas tu acreditas?
Agora 4. Olha, não consigo sair. Sai. Qual é que é? Um 6. Não dá, vamos para baixo. O rei. O rei vai para o rei. Olha, que sorte. Que sorte. Foi sorte, não foi memória. Um 6. Um 6, não sei. Um 8. Agora vamos ver.
Quem ganhou?
Quem ganhou? Então falta-me aqui um 9. Tens poucas cartas, mas tens de contar os pares. Então faz assim. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. E tu quantos tens? Então vá, vamos ver quem ganhou. Põe lá o teu montinho aqui, ao lado. Então,
O meu.
Peraí. Ui.
Foi eu.
O teu da esquerda e o meu da direita. E o teu está mais alto. Então ganhaste tu. Lá vai uma, lá vão duas, três pombinhas a voar. Uma é minha, outra é tua, outra é de quem a apanhar. A criada lá de cima é feita de papelão. Quando vai fazer as camas, diz assim para o patrão. 7 e 7 são 14, com mais 7 são 21. Tenho 7 namorados e não gosto de nenhum. E agora vamos andar de baloiço. Para a frente, para trás. Pernas para a frente, pernas para trás. Pernas para a frente, pernas para trás. Frente, trás. Uou! Agora, sem trancinhas, just a quick reminder to register for the webinar. There's a link in the description below. And if you want a sort of a preparation for it, you can check this video next, where I give more details and explain better what I mean by the Queen of Portuguese. And this has been a key factor for my unschoolers to overcome the hurdle of understanding how the Portuguese speak. So if you want to have a quick peek at that before the webinar, check it out. And I'll see you next. Até a próxima!